The ABC keeps shocking me with its vicious bias against Israel, a democracy that's now fighting Hamas, a terrorist group which runs Gaza and murdered 1,400 Israelis 3 weeks ago. Now, last night, for instance, I gave examples of the incredibly hostile questions that an ABC reporter in the National Press Club fired at Israel's ambassador after he listed the many atrocities Hamas had committed in that slaughter, like, you know, what it did to a pregnant woman and her baby. But unbelievably, it's got even worse than that. Worse even than the ABC yesterday on AM, reporting a woman from Israel, one of the hostages had been released, only about 4 of them, saying, oh, I was treated well, without saying, by the way, mentioning what she'd also said, and they beat me. She's 85 years old. They beat me with sticks, and the ABC admitted that bit. Seriously. But it got much worse after the Israeli ambassador's lecture. Straight after he finished, the ABC turned for comments to a former ABC Middle East reporter, Nicole Johnson, whose only comment on the ambassador's long list of Hamas atrocities, children burned alive, women tortured, and more, her one comment was that the ambassador might be exaggerating the number of babies beheaded.
What's your response to that and the graphic images that he invoked in there?
Some people would come out and say that the issue of dozens of Israeli children being decapitated still hasn't been verified.
I'm just so speechless. I'm sure you figured out how appalling that is. And then she said this.
He went on to talk about Hamas accusing it of using human shields. That's a really interesting one. I covered the 2012 war and the 2014 war, and that accusation was constantly made, and we never found it to be correct.
This is the ABC's expert brought in from outside to give expert commentary. I mean, what an idiotic claim. Hamas has actually issued an order telling its people not to flee Gaza. You can read it on the internet, it's right there, because it needs those people there as protection or to provide the corpses to impress the media. Now, if Hamas didn't want human shields, if it didn't want its own people dead for the cameras, why does it make Palestinians face the bombing above ground? Why does it ban them from hiding in the 500 kilometres of tunnels it's built right under Gaza for its terrorists? No, you can't come down here where it's safe, you've got to stay up there. But Nicole Johnson still hadn't finished. She even claimed that Hamas might actually want a peace deal, you know, with Israel, despite the fact it's just caused the war to the knife, you know. She did admit, I'll give her some credit, its official charter had called for Israel to be destroyed. They actually called for Jews to be murdered as well. But it now, she said, had a revised charter.
There are some analysts who would argue that Hamas later reviewed its charter. And when it reviewed its charter, it said that it would accept a Palestinian state on the 1967 lines. And that was considered by many to be a sort of implicit recognition of Israel.
Get off the grass. Go type it in the Google machine for yourself. Hamas Charter, 2017 version. Even this new and supposedly peaceful one says, and I quote, the establishment of Israel is entirely illegal. Hamas rejects any alternative to the full and complete liberation of Palestine from the river to the sea. That's from between the River Jordan on the eastern border of Israel to the Mediterranean Sea on its western one. So everything in between, which is the entire country of Israel, must be gone and replaced, of course, by an Islamic state. Hamas kills, it butchers, it rapes, it tortures, it kidnaps, and it lies. It steals aid meant for its people and rejects peace for war. All that, and our ABC looks at the mayhem and bloody misery that Hamas has caused, and it says, those Israelis exaggerating. They're so brutal. Well, at least one of this show's regular commentators has gone to Israel to find out for himself what's going on. Filmmaker and commentator Ami Horowitz joins me from Jerusalem. Ami, thank you for your time. Look, you've been to Israel many times. This must feel really different now, what you're seeing.
Yeah, it sure is. It's look, you walk the streets of Israel, of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, and there's a pall everywhere. There's a sense of sorrow through the streets. Everybody you speak to, everybody I know, has lost somebody, knew somebody who lost somebody in these horrific attacks, and they're just gearing up for the next phase. They know what's coming is going to be bad. It's going to be bloody. Again, every day you hear sirens of rocket attacks coming to Israel. The situation is as tense as I've ever seen it in my life. I think it's as tense, if not more tense, than anybody in Israel has ever seen it in maybe their lifetimes. It's incredible. It's difficult, but this is how this country must persevere.
Now, I assume that you had to, I think commercial flights to Ben Gurion Airport between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem have stopped, and you've had to go through Amman, Jordan to get to Israel. What did you see there?
Yeah, I did. And I've been to Amman a number of times. I find it a very hospitable country. But obviously, things have changed. I'll tell you, I went, of course, to the demonstrations in Amman, and thousands of people who were there. And again, we've talked about this before, but of course, when you're there and you're sensing and feeling it firsthand, it's a little bit different than discussing it academically or theoretically on television. But the chants, not just death to Israel, which of course they're chanting, death to America and death to the Jews, right? Those are the chants, those are the words they're using. It is ugly, it is horrific, and it's explicit what they're trying to do. They're not hiding the ball here. They're saying the quiet part out loud. Death to Israel, death to America, death to the Jews. And, it was interesting when I was crossing the border, which I've done over a dozen times from Jordan into Israel. And again, I've always found the border crossing guards to be very friendly to me. We've shared a coffee. We have to wait a little bit. As I was crossing over, they asked me, where are you going? And of course I said, I'm going to Israel. And they said, I don't know what that is. If you want to go, you can go to Palestine. I need to hear you say you want to go to Palestine. And at first I thought he was joking. And I said, it's very funny. They said, no, we're not going to give you we're going to stamp your transit card unless you say I am going to Palestine. To which point I said, I don't know, you think you're messing with. I'd rather sit here all day and not cross over than say I'm going to Palestine. I'm not going to play your game. And we were in a standoff for a couple of hours because I wouldn't say it. Finally, they were able to put me through because I had to call a couple of people who said enough with this. But yeah, the situation in Jordan is extraordinarily tense, as it is, I'm sure, in every Arab nation around the world, and certainly here in Israel.
And some of the anti-Semitism, conscious or unconscious, is just sickening. The UN Secretary General, I mentioned it yesterday, the socialist politician Antonio Guterres, with his comments saying, well, look, it was terrible what Hamas did to Israel, but you've got to see it in context of the occupation. As in, whatever Hamas now does, it's always the Jews' fault. Whatever Hamas does to Jews, well, the Jews really were asking for it. Sick. Army, sick. It's absolutely disgusting what's going on.
Yeah, look, the UN comes from a long line of sick secretary generals, and this one is maybe the worst. And that's saying a lot, considering one of them was a Nazi. Antonio Guterres is absolutely anti-Israel, bordering on anti-Semitic. He may be anti-Semitic. I don't know for sure. But his comments were striking, right? Okay, first of all, it's classic blame the victim. The left always bemoans, how can you blame the victim? That's exactly what he's doing. But he's also, again, pushing blood libels, right? It's not just that he's saying that Israel deserved it, which he is, but also continues the lies that we've debunked over and over and over again, saying that Israel is targeting civilians, right? This is the lie they're pushing on the left. This is the blood libel, which leads to the deaths that we saw in Israel in the hands of butchers.
Our own Prime Minister. Our own Prime Minister implying that Israel had deliberately targeted a hospital and not retracting that insinuation. Ami Horowitz, keep safe. Thank you for your time.